Welcome. I want to thank Texas for inviting me up here from Florida. Perhaps we should love ourselves so fiercely that when others see us, they'll know exactly how it should be done. Rudy Francisco. Well, when I was in elementary school, I was, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I was a nerd. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Dr. Joel, you're so suave, so sophisticated, so well-dressed. It was not always like this. It all started in the first grade at 6 years old. My parents, they moved from Jamaica to Florida, and I couldn't figure out why all the other kids thought I spoke funny when they were the ones with accents. I began to bury my voice beneath the shame of sounding different. A little boy in the hall pulled up the corners of his eyes and made sounds that he thought was Chinese. I don't even speak Chinese. He doesn't even know me. I began to bury who I was beneath the shame of being different. My parents moved in December. I started school in January, mid-year, and social circles had formed, and I was on the outside, so I kept to myself, quiet and shy. And the only piece of advice my immigrant parents could offer me about school, education is the way to succeed in this country. Now, this is a truth that I have lived. But then they said, do what your teachers tell you. They had put a label on my forehead that said, teacher's pet. Well, shy, awkward, teacher's pet, the stars were aligned for me to be a nerd. Well, in the third grade, the thing happened that sealed my fate. You see, the class would copy math problems from the chalkboard. Problem was, I couldn't quite see the board. But I knew what to do. Copy from your neighbor. And then solve them. Now, if there was no neighbor, I made them up as best I could, and I'm pretty sure I always had the right answer. I just didn't always have the right problem. Well, mid-year, the school had a vision screening. A note went home to my parents, glasses were ordered, and for the first time I could see the sharp details of trees, sidewalk, people. I had been missing the social cues of smiles or frowns unless they're right up in front of me. And worse yet, people assumed I could see them. He's just ignoring us. So I would ignore them because I couldn't figure out what I was ignoring. Well, shy, awkward, now with thick-rimmed glasses and Coke bottle lenses, I was fully on. With all the necessary accoutrements to be a nerd. And if this was not enough, now that I was getting the problems and the answers correct, the teachers decided that I might be, dare I say it, smart. This was the kiss of death. I was tested for the gifted program, and weeks later, a kid just trying to fit in gets pulled out of regular class for an hour a day. And all I remember is confusion. Why am I here? I hung on to my parents' direction. Do what your teachers tell you. Now, if nerd had been stamped on my forehead before, it was now etched in place by being smart. As far as I could tell, being smart was not good. It made me stick out, made me more different. Well, I buried myself beneath schoolwork and a thick skin. I was a nerd. Now, I know you're wondering, how did a nerd, socially awkward, culturally different, isolated, alone, become this amazing specimen you see before you? Well, sixth grade was the start of middle school. A whole new world was opening up to me, and I had a plan. New clothes, new friends, new school. I was going to be cool. Well, I sat down and the bell rang in the first period of sixth grade, and I realized I was still me. All the shame of a nerd had moved to sixth grade with me. Well, I buried myself further into schoolwork and hung on to that life raft of an immigrant. Education is the way to succeed in this country. Well, it was the second semester before I got a breath of fresh air. You see, the art classroom was not like any other class I'd been to before. The smell of paint, art supplies, and possibilities soaked the room. Mrs. Chenault stood at the front and spelled her name. C-H-E-N-N-A-U-L-T. Chenault. That was French. A strange name for an African-American woman. But right away I knew she was not like the others. She wore artist caps, hair in weaves or braids, bright-colored shirts, matched her socks. She seemed more like one of us. She was not like the English teacher, prim and proper, wearing old lady dresses, who talked to us across the gulf of generations. One of us would drown in that gulf. And she was not like the social studies teacher, who was oblivious to what the students were doing behind his back. You see, it was a zoo of spitballs and students jumping out of their seats. But Mrs. Chenault had a strong presence, a strong voice, and a strong personality. She loved herself so fiercely that when we saw her, we knew exactly how it should be done. She seemed to have eyes in the back of her head. From across the room, she could turn and yell, "Michael, when you know better, you do better. And I know you know better." Even the cool kids respected her. Everyone did what she said. We were not so much afraid of her, but we were afraid to disappoint her. Well, halfway through the second semester, I had an English paper to type. My typewriter was broken, and so I asked Miss Chenault if I could borrow hers. My parents signed a permission slip, and I figured she had one in the art classroom, but she took me to her home. And I saw the typewriter on her husband's desk, but she sat me down at the dining room table where she had her new computer. She taught me how to use the word processor, and I fell in love with the computer. Then she showed me the project she was working on. She had drawn pictures on the computer and wanted to animate them to teach kids how to read with stories and phonics. She taught me all that she knew about the computer, programming, animation, and I was captivated. As we worked on projects together, we talked about big things, little things, anything about our lives. And for a shy, awkward kid, to have someone listen, truly listen, is a gift I'm eternally grateful for. She brought me out of my shell. I began to speak up for myself in class. You see, strength rubs off on me. One day she said, "You got to learn to say no. When I was young, I practiced on my family. If you can't say no to your family, who can you say no to?" Well, I laughed, but she had homed in on my people-pleasing teacher's pet little mouse personality, and she was determined to find a lion in there somewhere. She took me under her wing as a mentor, guiding me through the school system. She gave me advice on things my parents, as immigrants, could not understand. And I often spent 2 to 3 evenings a week at her house until my parents got home from work to pick me up. Well, one day, her oldest daughter was visiting. She was in her late 20s, had moved out long before, and she saw me typing away at the computer as usual. She turned to her mom and said, "You've got to stop stealing other people's children." "I'm not stealing it. He's got parents." You see, I was not the first that she'd adopted into the family, and over the years, she became like a second mother. My family would join hers at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and other family gatherings. We would spend many days after school in the art classroom at her house, working on projects together. We worked on school art projects, my science fair projects, her reading program, social studies projects, computer projects, her master's dissertation. Yes, all kinds of nerdy things. We were nerds together. And I suddenly realized she was a nerd too. And she was accepted, respected, and admired. I could be a nerd and be accepted, respected, and admired too. When I graduated from medical school, I remember she took the time to say, "I'm proud of you." You see, I'm still a nerd. I'm still a little awkward sometimes, and I still wear glasses sometimes. And I still like to do nerdy things. But I found my voice, and I'm proud to be exactly who I am. This fine specimen of a nerd, because someone took the time to see me, to hear me, and to love me. On the sacred gathering together, I would like to honor Melva Taylor Chenault, the teacher, the mentor, the second mother. I would like us all to take a moment to honor all those that have mothered us. All those that have mothered us. All those that loved us so fiercely, we learned to love ourselves. I just want to take a moment to honor again Melva Taylor Chenault. She's passed on about 10 years ago, and I'm so happy to be able to share her in story with you, and want to leave you with a blessing. To share the stories of your loved ones, to share their love, whether in story or in action. And so may you go out today and love fiercely.